Hello everybody, Kilo here, and last night I did some coaching for a new team to competitive in MFC called Bossed Up, and I taught like their A team and B team some basic formations and kind of the basics of competitive team play because they wanted to start taking it a little more seriously. This is something I've done for numerous teams in the past, and a couple of them asked me to record it for them because they wouldn't all be able to attend last night, and so I decided, why not edit it down so it's a little more digestible because it was a 2-hour coaching. So just kind of editing it down, and I figured why not post it? Why not make it public so that people who are starting out into comp have an easy resource to point them to, kind of learn the basic formations as well as some terminology that you'll need to know. Anyone that's a little more advanced or even just has a couple months of comm experience might not get all too much out of the video. It is for very beginner basic stuff, but just anyone on low tier teams or anyone trying to get started in competitive Mordhau, I think this is a really great resource to point them to. So yeah, I definitely think even intermediate players could get something out of it. Uh, so yeah, if you're interested in watching it, feel free to take some time and learn how to be more competitive in Mordhau. Basically, what I cover is the two basic formations, including W and a 3-2 split, how to adapt those to what your opponents are playing, as well as like a 4-1, what a rat support and frontline are, different positions, different terminology you'll need to know like micro, macro, all of those kind of things, like switching and catching, the basics of that kind of stuff. It's just a very basic overview of how to be more competitive in skirmish in Mordhouse. So feel free to watch. Let me know if you guys like this. I don't know if anyone will ever watch this beside the bossed up guys, but if you're someone who wants to learn a little bit more about how to get started in comp, feel free to watch. Always feel free to DM me on Discord. You could find my links everywhere. Just like message me on Discord or Steam or Twitch even, and I'll be happy to help anyone out with like coaching and stuff whenever I can. So let me know what you think. I'm not sure if anyone will really watch this video, but if you end up watching it, even if it's a couple months down the line, just let me know what you thought in the comments. So hope you guys enjoy. But a quick like intro for me, if anyone doesn't know. I've been playing comp for over a year now. I started like last March, so about like 13 and a half months I've been playing comp. And I'm not the best. Like I'm not like top tier player, but I'd say I'm pretty good. I'm pretty experienced, and I've been playing for a while. I'm on the team I'm on right now is called 20 Bliss. If anyone doesn't know, currently ranked I think number 7 in MFC, which is cool. But it's kind of like if you guys are familiar with chess, you don't need like a grandmaster, like top 10 player in the world to teach you like the
Mm-hmm.
basics of playing or like with any game really. You don't need like the absolute best players to teach you the basics. So I think that's kind of where I come in because there's some people like I like that are better than me that I'm not just not going to be able to like give insane feedback on and teach them new stuff. But like I think my strength definitely comes with like teaching and coaching because I'm going to school for education. I'm trying to be a teacher, so I think I'm pretty good at it. And it's
Nice,
also good practice.
nice.
So yeah, I'm just gonna kind of share my like paint screen just for a sec. Just probably like 5-10 minutes just to kind of like get some of the like talking out of the way, and then we can hopefully go in game. Probably just gonna actually disconnect from the server because I'll probably get kicked for inactivity. But yeah, this is usually how I start is just going over some basics in paint. So let's say we're in Mosh Pit. So for anyone unfamiliar, that's the map we were just in. It's just a big green grassy field. And let's say over here, is everyone able to see this all right?
Yep.
What I'm doing? Okay, great. So over here is like red spawn, and then over here is blue spawn, right? So you spawn opposite sides. Obviously these are like tunnels, but I'm just kind of doing this to signify. And then all throughout you've got this like dirt road down the middle, and then you've got grass up here and down here as well. And so that's kind of just mosh pit from a top-down view. And so basically, right, when you're playing, we're gonna do most of the talking probably from red side, just cause That's usually how I do it. But actually, I think this would be flipped. I think I think red would be on this side if you're viewing it like top down, and then blue over here. And Kebab, I think we're picking up your keyboard. Do you think you could mute or just push to talk? That'd be great.
Mhm.
Thanks. All right, so uh, just work that out.
There.
No problem. Sorry, bro. All right. So yeah. Let's say we're on red team. All right, and we want to obviously play skirmish in a more competitive aspect, like more um, play to win, like right? Like when we're playing MFC, we want to play to win. We want to use everything we can to our advantage. So I saw that you guys, both teams, the A and B, in their matches were using like basic formations, like kind of just sticking together and stuff, which is really good. Like just sticking by each other, sticking close is really important because in skirmish, obviously it's last person standing. It's not like frontline where you can just go like full naked armor with a maul and bloodlust and just go run in and not care if you die. Because in skirmish, there's repercussions to that. And if you just run in and die, your team's just going to be down a man for that round and probably lose the round as a result. So you definitely want to be sticking together a lot of the time, which is, or at least coordinating together. Even if you're not standing, shoulder to shoulder, you always want to be coordinating, which I definitely saw you guys attempt, which is great. Really happy to see that. And some quick terms to define that we're going to be using. The two biggest terms are micro and macro. So for anyone unfamiliar, micro is like your individual impact, like what you do, your mechanics and your mechanical skill, what you can do in your own sense, and then macro is the team as a whole. And so some players are a lot better at the micro aspect, where they're just really, really good mechanically, and they'll win every duel that they're put in. But they might suffer a little bit in the macro side, which is like the team as a whole. And then some people are the opposite. I'd consider myself someone who's definitely better at the macro side of it. I'm a lot better at like visualizing on a team scale, so that can be difficult for some people to kind of look at, like thinking about your position with respect to your teammates and with respect to the enemy team, what you should be doing in that sense. So that's pretty much what we're going to be learning today, is how to do macro and how to think macro, how to have good macro as a team. We're not going to focus a lot on like specific mechanical stuff, aside from as it plays into the team. So there's two main formations I want to teach you guys today. And a formation is basically just how you arrange your 5 players. Because you have 5 people, and you could very well send, like one guy over here and over here and over here and over here, and they just all, go away, do their own thing. But if blue team has good formations, and if there's just like 1 or 2 red guys over here on the corner, and blue team knows what they're doing, and all 5 of them push them, they're just going to be able to, instantly kill them. So formations are really important. The main one I want to teach you guys to start is one that's a little more together. So you're all 5 of you are staying close. It's kind of what you guys were trying to do, but not really knowing how to put the pieces together. And this formation is called W formation. And W formation is great because it's really adaptable. It uses all 5 of your team members, and they each have a very specific role. It has fallen a little bit out of favor recently for reasons that we'll get into. So I'm also going to teach you guys another formation called a 3-2 split, which is when you have your 5 players and you have 3 go one way and 2 go another way. And that's probably a little bit more meta right now, because meta, quote unquote, is mostly like light armor builds, and Bardishas are really strong. And kind of just running around with like Bardishas and Mauls, and playing Mordhau as it was intended to be created, just running around hacking people's heads off. And the W formation is a little more principled because everyone's really close together, and that's the one we're going to start with because that's kind of just your go-to formation, like when you want to stick together as a team and like play together. So the W formation is called a W because you kind of have your 5 members and you line them up in the shape of a W. So if I just draw like a big W here, the 5 tips are kind of where like each of your players stands. So like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? And they kind of stand when they're standing on their own without the W there. When you've got kind of the W formation, it kind of makes a little bit of a W. And this is kind of something that I saw you guys doing. It's like a W facing the enemy team. And it's kind of just like your go-to stay together because there's not too much room in between each of these guys. Like there's not enough room that a blue guy could just walk through because that gap isn't quite big enough. However, these aren't like super strict, guidelines. It's not like this guy has to be 2.4 meters away from this guy at all times. It's a little bit more adaptable, or adaptive rather, and that's one of the things that makes the W formation really strong. And if I could pick one formation just be really good at it, probably be the W because it's super adaptable. Because you can have, for example, if I use like this brown color to dictate like groups, right? So we have these three the guys. If they want to, they can like split off, and then these two guys can split off this way. And so from the W you can transpose really easily into these smaller groups, or you can have maybe like these two guys kind of wrap the enemy team as they're standing there, because if both teams are facing off against each other in a W, it's a bad drawing. Oh my gosh, I'm trolling right now, but it looks like a potato. Because oh my god, if both teams are standing here kind of in a W, like facing each other, this is how a lot of formations used to go, or sorry, a lot of how team fights used to go, with both teams just like lining up 5-on-5, full heavy armor, just kind of hitting each other in a W. And this is probably like my favorite way to play personally. But it's not that meta anymore because the thing about the W that makes it really dangerous, but can also be a drawback, is it can kind of fall apart sometimes, whether it's to your advantage or to your disadvantage. Because, for example, if these two red guys over here decide that they want to push together, or if all of blue team, for example, for some reason shifts a couple inches, I guess like a full foot or whatever, to like up. In our case, where we're looking top down, they shift up. So now like this guy's here and here and here, and that creates a bit of a gap for these two red guys. I guess the easiest way to draw this would
Is it
be.
server bugged?
I am not sure. I'm currently not in the game.
I just disconnected.
It might be restarting or something. Not sure, but we'll just keep talking in paint for a second. But yeah, so if this whole formation like shifts up, and then these two red guys down here that used to be closer to their team are a little bit farther away, this can either be to your advantage if you do it on purpose, or it can severely put you at a disadvantage. But basically, these two guys can wrap around the enemy team, or even just what we like to call strong side, and just kind of use the left side of the engage, because if you're on red team and you're like facing, what the hell is that arrow? Facing the blue team spawn, like this is to your left. So this is what we call like a left strong side, and so they would just kind of push into the enemy team and push against them. But if blue team does this on their terms, or if they get their way, these two guys in the middle can get in between that gap that has been created and either hit these guys or hit these guys. So that's the thing about the W, is it can either work to or for, or it can work for you or against you. But it is just a super consistent formation that you can just go and run in like 99% of encounters. It works on all maps, and you can also shift this. So you can either play a little bit more aggressively, where maybe you'll take the fight and you'll all push together up toward like the enemy's spawn, where like all you guys are up there. Or you could play a little bit more passive. If any of you guys are familiar with the team Big Dogs, one of their favorite things to do is be really passive with their W. So they usually, when they're on red, they usually come back to this corner back here, and they'll kind of like back up against the corner, at the walls on either side, and they just kind of sit here in this W, and they're just like, yeah, come get me. Like, what are you gonna do? And as blue team, it's kind of just like hitting an impenetrable wall. This is a formation I refer to as ball formation, because you kind of all clump up together and you're just like sitting in this ball, and you're just kind of like, yeah, come at me, enemy team. But if you don't do it well, it can definitely backfire, and if the blue team kind of calls your bluff, you have nowhere to go. You're just kind of choked there. You can't really get out as well. But yeah, you can either shift the W formation. What makes the W formation really cool is you can fight just straight up in the middle right here. You can push really far into the enemy territory altogether, or you can be really passive and like go back to the corner. So you can take it wherever you want. And as well, the W formation, what's cool with it is kind of something I mentioned earlier, is if you're all running in this kind of W and you split, so you have like 3 guys go this way, and then the other half of the W kind of like goes this way. You can like split up the W into like into the 2 parts, or I guess it'd be more like this for them. But yeah, you kind of just have like the 5 players you can split off, so it's super adaptable. But mainly when you're playing the W, it's a really great time to go over what we like to call positions. I know these are horrible circles, don't yell at me. But what we like to call positions. So these 3 guys in the front, these are normally referred to as front lines. So these 3 guys that are closest to the enemy, not to be like confused with the game mode front line, but their position is called a front line. And so usually what these guys will do is they'll have like full. I cannot draw circles for the life of me. I'll just use these. They just usually have like full 333, full heavy armor. I guess they recently changed the point system, so now it's like 996. But just like full heavy armor and weapons like great swords, bardishes, messers, mauls, any of these kind of weapons. Like sometimes you can even get into like long swords or short spears, or S-stocks is a great one as well, or bill hooks. But usually, just like those kind of medium-sized weapons that usually you don't want to be using weapons that have like significant drawbacks. But weapons that are, just kind of like that medium range, kind of like your meat and potato weapons. And then these 2 guys in the back are what we refer to as supports, which is usually what I play. Support has definitely phased a little bit out of the meta recently, especially playing double support. But supports usually have really long weapons, namely spear, as well as halberd is a decent one if you prefer more like cleave style. But like spears, halberds, sometimes bill hooks and S-stocks, kind of more stabby weapons, because a lot of time what they'll do is they'll kind of like stab between their front lines or attack between them. So that's the W formation. Before we go into anything else like rats and light armor builds and stuff, let's just go ahead and go back into the game and kind of just practice the W formation. But yeah, this is basically like your straight up W formation. Just kind of take note, because I'm not going to be here for like every scrim, so kind of take note of the spacing, because the spacing's pretty good. Like kind of take note of the spacing between your guys. Make sure that you're always lined up horizontally, so like going left to right. Make sure you're always lined up with the guy on your left and your right, or if you're on the sides, like make sure you're in line with everyone. All right, that makes sense for everyone. Everyone have any questions about like just getting into the W? You'll want to identify before the game starts if you're going to be running a straight up W, which 3 of your guys are going to be in the front, which 2 are going to be in the back. If you're going to have a spear or 2, because those are really good for the guys in the back, or halberds. The thing is, with the guys in the back, you don't want to have like short weapons like a maul or a messer when you're actually like playing, because you're not going to be able to hit enemies through like between your teammates if your weapon's too short. Like if I had like a short sword, for example, and I'm standing way back here, there's no way I'm ever going to get a hit off. So it's very important that like the guys in the back have longer weapons. Guys in the front, not too important. Just kind of like use your preference for now. But yeah, most of the time you want to be going, when you guys are in the W, you want to be using as heavy armor as possible, because the W formation is kind of just like a bloodbath. It's kind of just like everybody hits everybody. So this is kind of decent like spacing, so you're not like completely touching each other like shoulder to shoulder. Like blue team may be a little bit congested. And like take a step or 2 to the side. But yeah, basically this is just like your W. You can imagine, like especially if you go in third person for a sec, you can like see how you're in kind of a W shape. And when I started, this is how pretty much every game of comp went. Like everyone would just kind of line up, be like, yeah, this is how we're doing it. Obviously we'll talk about why it's not like this anymore. We're gonna revisit the paint. We're getting back to the drawing board, literally. And basically, what the good thing about the W is you can play off of your enemy's weaknesses. So something we talked about earlier, right, where like is these 2 guys here kind of have the ability to split off and like push around a side, or these 3 guys can play together and push over here, or even just one guy, if they notice like this left front line notices a gap, for example, in the enemy's W, like I can use the circles right. If the enemy W kind of shifts up top here, I've never used this circle thing before. And then this guy maybe gets a little out of position down here, and this kind of gap opens up. Then, oh, that's cool. You can like change it after you draw it. And then like this gap kind of opens up where this side frontliner used to be. Like maybe for example, this side frontliner decides to split off and go around and wrap, like what like Ghosty and Spazzarella were doing, where they would like try to break off and go for a push. So then what this red guy here can do is kind of take in, fill in that gap, and then get behind and hit people in the back. Or maybe he needs to step to the side and hold this guy. But the best thing about the W is that it's very adaptive. So if you're getting kind of rolled, just like running into the opponent, you can do the exact same formation, but just do it in the corner, or maybe do it right in front of your spawn, and then that makes it so like you can't get wrapped. And you can also just take it and be super aggressive with it and push right into them. And then as you're pushing, something that we talked about is to have like two guys split off and go one way, or these two guys split off and go this way, while the other three kind of stay together. And that's pretty much the basic of the W. It's really adaptive. You can kind of do whatever you want with it. But the basic of the W is that you're staying together. Like you're staying close by each other. Everyone has a specific role. Like you'll have two side frontliners, you have a middle front line, and then you'll have two supports. And that's pretty much the W. All right, if there's nothing other questions on like the W, I want to talk about the reason that the W has fallen out of favor as of late is because of the prevalence of rats. So if we erase this support guy, because usually you still want to be running three front lines most of the time. Like you still want to have like three heavy armor greatsword guys on your team, or like heavy armor X weapon like Bardish's greatswords, Messer's S-stocks, that kind of stuff. And a lot of teams will still run a support, whether they're on a halberd or just playing like an S-stock, but like farther back behind their team. Supports are still really strong because they have high damage output. But support in general has kind of been replaced in the meta by rat. Because a rat, for anyone who doesn't know, is just a guy wearing light armor, usually equipping the rat perk, at least before. Now there's some better perks that you can run instead, like stun and acrobat. But the rat perk makes your footsteps 75% quieter, so people would run the rat perk on their light armor builds, and the enemy literally wouldn't be able to hear them coming, because you move quieter. And so that's why it got named a rat, because of the rat perk. But nowadays, it's pretty much just anyone that's wearing light armor, usually 1 or 2 head armor, and then like level 1 or 2 chest armor. Usually, like main meta right now is 1 head, 2 chest, 3 legs, because it's kind of like the best of all worlds. You are wearing level 1 head armor, so you can get headshotted every now and then, but you usually run like acrobat on your class with like your extra perk. So if you like bite a feint or something, you just jump and they just hit you in the legs. But you're also really fast because you're wearing level 1 head armor and level 2 chest, which is like the best blend of speed without sacrificing too much armor, because you can't really run like 0-0-0. But it's still a really good strat, and that's pretty much meta right now. Like meta right now is honestly to run 1 or 2 rats on your team, like light to medium armor guys, because if you just run 5 straight up, full heavy armor dudes and run at the enemy team in a W, if they're running those light armor guys, you'll a lot of times just get outclassed because they're just faster. And they'll just run around and beat people up, because that's kind of how Mordhau was like intended. Just run around with light armor and bloodlust and knock heads off. And so rats are kind of the prevalence of that in comp. And yeah, so that's why W is kind of falling out of favor a little bit. Like when I started, like I said, like when I joined like Cerberus and stuff, pretty much every team was just running 3 frontline, 2 spear, go at each other. But now it's usually better to run 1 or 2 rats. So if you have 2 rats, for example, then you would just have this little triangle of guys, or even just three front lines. But you'd have just this little triangle, and then you'd have your 2 rats. So I'll use this like kind of grayish color to denote a rat. And these guys are just like light armor, and they're just gonna go run around, kind of cause havoc. Like I guess it'd be more positioned like probably like here. If you're running double rat, you're running like here and here. Oh, I'm getting a phone call. I don't need to take that. It's just my friend. It's a Game of Thrones theme, for anyone wondering. But basically, they just run around, and their goal basically is just to disrupt the enemy's team. Disrupt the enemy team rather, and kind of just disrupt their macro. Like if you're going into a game and you're playing W formation, you're like, yeah, this is what's gonna happen. We're just gonna go right at them. It can't always happen if the enemy team runs rats, because let me draw the blue formation quickly as well. Okay, so we have two W's kind of matching each other, kind of what we were just doing, right? But if this guy, this back end support, changes his class, or if you just don't have that guy in general and you just have a rat instead, and he's a rat over here, if blue team doesn't react and they just pretend nothing's changed, and they're just like, trying to find this W, then this rat here is going to be able to get behind the enemy team and kill all these people. And just basically just hit them all in the back. If they come with a maul, right, they can sometimes just come in and get like 2 headshots, 1 swing, if nobody sees them coming. Which can definitely happen at low tier, by the way. Or if they come in with a war axe or a bardiche, they can just come in and cleave 4 people with 1 swing. So that's why it's kind of counters, this kind of just fighting together strategy when you have a rat on your team. Or if you have, for example, 2 rats on your team, and the enemy team is just running. Dude, I will call you back, friend. If the enemy team is just running a W and you have a double rat, for example, this is not where you want to be. If you're blue team in this spot, you do not want to be in this spot when you're just running W, trying to play like it's W on W with the enemy team's 2 rats, because the rats are just going to get behind a lot of the time, and just like you're just dead. Like you're just going to get like, it's like a trash compactor. When it's like on the conveyor belt and the walls are closing in and just like smashing the trash into little atoms. That's basically what's going to happen with these double rats. They're just going to come in and bulldoze through the whole blue team, and it's not going to be a fun time for them. And rats are really good. I wish they weren't, but I would definitely recommend running 1 or 2 rats on your team, like level 1 head, level 2 chest, level 3 leg, because it's pretty much just like, if you don't, you're kind of worse off. Like we pretty much always on our team have 1 or 2 rats at most times. It is kind of high risk, high reward, because they are, there's definitely rats like every game that you'll have. Even the best rats just getting like one-shotted by like halberds and bardiches because they're wearing level 1 head armor. But more often than not, they're going to have a very high impact because they're just really fast. They can just like run away from the enemies and just kind of cause a lot of havoc. But yeah, W formation is still super strong if you're a team that just wants to straight up, play close together. You can always play W, and then if the enemy team has a rat, by the way, you can still play W. Let me put back this guy. So if the enemy team like has a rat, for example, this back support can kind of just like go duel him and just like hold him away from the team. Or even if you need to, like this frontline guy can go over here and just kind of like hold this rat away from the engagement, and then it just becomes like a 4v4, and then it's just it's just anybody's game at that point. So the last thing I want to go over in paint, and then the rest of it's just going to be all in-game stuff, is just one other formation that's a little bit better right now as far as like what's most commonly played and why. And it's called the 3-2 split. So you'll take your 5 players, you'll have 3 go one way and 2 go the other way. And I'm not saying that they're going to be on like opposite corners of the map. Like you're not going to have like 3 guys over here and then 2 guys like way over here. It's more just like you have 3 guys over here, for example, in their little triangle, and then 2 guys go over here. And actually, probably more like this, and then like how this looks over here. But usually with the 3-2 split, there's a lot of different stuff you could do with it. Like you can either have both of these engagements be full heavy armor. So you can have like these 2 guys in full heavy armor and these 3 guys in full heavy armor. Or you can do a mix. You can have like these 2 guys both in light armor and these 3 guys all in heavy armor. Or 2 of these guys in light armor and then 1 guy in heavy armor and then 1 and 1 and all these things. And they're all viable, and you have to play differently with each of them. But at its core, the 3-2 split is a way that's better against rats because you're not all fighting together. So remember how earlier when we looked at the W formation, when all these guys are together and like the red team has two rats, you can kind of come in and like sandwich them and just kind of like be like a trash compactor. You don't have that problem in the 3-2 split because there's like no way for like these three guys to have be getting hit from every angle, because then these two guys are going to be able to hit the enemies in the back. So you kind of dodge that problem. It's better against rats a lot of the time, and it's more conducive to playing rats, because if you have, for example, both of these guys playing rat together, then they can have a lot of switch potential onto the three guys over here. So it's probably 3-2 is probably like a better formation right now. 3-2, like I said, we still play it every now and then, especially on like Contraband. But especially like Mosh Pit and Chester and these bigger open maps, the W formation can get wrapped really easily. Like I said, that trash compactor, like you can just get sandwiched from both sides. So that's where the 3-2 split is good. It's a lot more micro based. A lot of time, especially at like low tier, especially as you're just starting out, a lot of time you just want to focus on winning that 2v2 and that 3v3. Like if you guys, like if let me do blue. So like if blue team, for example, sends three guys over here and then two guys over here, then this is just a lot more micro based. Just like these guys got to win their 2v2 and these guys just got to win their 3v3, and that's pretty much what it comes down to a lot of the time. Um, but there's also um, aspects of macro in the 3-2 split, because like I said before, if these two guys here are both playing light armor, so I'm going to use this like pinkish color to distinguish like a rat. So if these two guys are playing like rats, um, and they're really fast and they're able to make these kind of switches, and then blue team is kind of lined up like this and like this, uh, then these two red guys here that are playing light armor can switch onto like the enemies that their teammates are fighting. So they're like not just locked into fighting in their just their things. Or this guy here, for example, could have potential to run over and hit these guys over here as well. But at its basic level, the 3-2 split is kind of more commonly played, especially at low tier right now, because you don't have a lot of those same problems that the W has, like like getting wrapped from enemies and getting hit with the trash compactor. But the 3-2 split is still very dangerous in its own way, and there's many ways to play a 3-2 split. So you can either play it defensively or offensively, or a mixture of both. And the reason that you can do a mixture of both is, like I said, the 3-2 split is very, very like malleable. Like you can kind of bend it, twist it however you want, because you could have, for example, these three guys play passive and play back towards spawn where they are, and then you can have these two guys push way up here toward the enemy spawn. And like these guys are playing aggro while these guys are playing defense. Or you can have everyone be defensive, which is probably my favorite way to play the 3-2 split. If you have like these guys playing defensive, and then you also have these two guys over here playing defensively, and then you kind of just wait to see what blue team does, because if blue team sends all 5 of their players toward these guys, or all 5 of their players toward these guys, right? So this is like all 5 with my great handwriting. That's a disgusting 5. But yeah, they have like all 5 of their players push either the 2 guys or the 3 guys. And then if you're playing defensively, what you want to do in this situation, and this is crucial, is the side that's being pushed by all 5 players just need to be defensive. They just need to survive as long as they can. They need to play together as a 2 and back up. Usually you want to back up toward your spawn. Because if you back up way out in the corner, that's going to increase the distance between you and your teammates. So like if these two guys are getting pushed, and like they're here and they're getting pushed, and they back up all the way over here, the the amount of space between them and their teammates is huge here. Like it is, it's. I mean, we were just on Mosh Pit. It's a very large distance. Whereas if they back up toward their spawn, and instead, right, they're like right here and right here. If they back up, let me get like this brown. So if they back up here, there's this big distance. But they back up toward spawn, toward this way, then it would look something like this, and they would be here, and they end up toward their spawn, and this distance is literally half of the distance as if they were all the way over here. So you want to back up, whether it's the 2 guys getting wrapped or the 3 guys getting wrapped, getting pushed rather. Not wrapped. If they're getting pushed by all 5 players, you want to back up toward your spawn and just survive. And just all 5 of those guys, you're gonna have to 5v2 or 5v3 if these guys get pushed. Same rules apply. Still back up towards spawn as a group. And basically just survive. You're gonna be like 2v5 and 3v5ing for 2 or 3 seconds. But this strategy, again, you don't need to know the specific name of the formation, but this is called what I like to call the Pincer Formation, because what ended up happening is, let's say all 5 blue guys push the 3. So all 5 of them are kind of playing in like this, this W kind of thing, and I didn't mean to make that one blue. And then they're playing over here. I don't like this. They're playing over here, right? What's going to happen is these guys are going to back up towards spawn, these 3 reds, and then these 2 reds are going to take a wide wrap. They're going to wrap all the way around. No, they don't need to go like to the corner and then the corner and then back, because that'll take a long time. But they'll take a wide wrap around so they can't get stopped, and then come behind and pinch like a scorpion. Like a scorpion's pincer, how it like pinches stuff like a crab. They'll pinch the blue guys between them, and like that kind of trash compactor kind of thing. They'll take a long run, and they'll end up over here. It's too big, but they'll kind of end up over here, and then red team, as long as these 3 guys survive, as long as none of them die, or they haven't taken too much damage, this is a horrible engagement for blue. And I guarantee you will win many rounds like this. If you play a defensive 3-2, which works very, very well at low tier against teams that don't know what to do against it, I guarantee you this will happen, where all 5 blue guys will push either the trio or the pair and just get rolled. Because obviously, I mean, even just optically, just looking at this does just not look good for blue. They're getting hit from this side, and they are getting hit from this side, and they're not going to be able to withstand all of that pressure if like 95% of the time if you play it correctly. So you just need to push into them. And that's really important when you play the defensive 3-2. 2 things can happen. Either all 5 of the blue guys, or if you're on the blue team, it's switch, and all 5 of the red guys can push either the pair or the trio. And in that case, everyone in that group needs to back up together towards spawn. Because what will happen is, if 2 guys do the right thing and back up towards spawn, but this, for example, if this guy here doesn't do that, and he stays here, if he even, God forbid, pushes in, he's going to get 5v1 and just instantly, and then these 2 guys probably going to follow shortly after. So all of those guys need to back up together towards spawn, ideally, because if you back up this way, it's going to take longer for these guys to go for their wrap, because they have to travel a farther distance. So you're going to back up towards spawn and let the enemy guys get behind them. You kind of have to trust that your teammates are going to get there in time. Just survive as long as you can. And these 2 guys over here in this situation can't really just be like twiddling their fingers, As soon as you see all 5 blues commit to a side, these guys need to start that wrap, and they need to get behind to eliminate them from the back. Okay. So the other thing that can happen if all 5 of the blues don't push either the pair or the trio is they can match numbers. So they'll have 3 guys go over here and then 2 guys go over here. And when this happens, it's a lot more micro-based, because you kind of just have to win these fights. Like, there's no better way to do it at the low tier unless you just win these fights. Now, Terry, team I mentioned earlier, is really, really good at the 3-2 split. And the reason is because they don't only rely... Here, let me actually put these back. They don't only rely on the pair winning their 2v2 and the trio winning their 3v3. Like I mentioned earlier, these 2 guys, when played correctly, they can pivot over, and then they can switch onto the enemy team. And at the same time, these 2 guys will kind of move to intercept these 2 guys. Here, actually, let me do different colors. These 2 guys here will have to move this way to kind of intercept these 2 guys as they can. Let me do this in more of like a darker green, right? So these 2 guys are obviously going to want to chase the 2 guys, but they get blocked here. And so kind of like the 2 guys from the pair switch like kind of, if you've ever seen like wrestling, how they like tap out, like they tap in like a teammate, right? And then they switch. Like that's kind of what happens when played at a very high level macro scale. Obviously, I couldn't even do that if I'm being real with you. But at a very high level, the two guys will switch with two of the guys from the trio. If you can kind of imagine that happening, like
Hmm.
the two guys kind of run this way, and they're running over, and then they switch, and at the same time, these two guys will pivot over and catch these. Catching is basically when your teammate or plural teammates make a switch, and a switch basically is just like when you switch onto someone like you're not currently attacking. Like at its basic level, if I'm this red guy right here and I'm fighting this guy and then I hit his teammate here, or if I hit this guy, or if this fight gets close and I'm fighting this guy and I switch onto him, that's a little too far. But if it gets closer, that's basically what a switch is. And so a catch is when your teammate kind of picks up the guy that you were just fighting. So how that would look is if we have like over here, let's say this is like a zoomed in fight of this 2v2 right here. We have these two red guys and these two blue guys kind of going at it. And this red guy right here decides that he's fighting this guy currently. He wants to switch onto this guy. So when that happens, when he switches onto this blue guy now has free reign to just hit both of them. So this red guy needs to catch onto that guy, and they kind of like crisscross. They like swap who they're fighting, and that's a switch, and then the other guy catches. And there's no great way to get good at that except experience. If I'm this red guy right here, and I see my teammate who hasn't killed this guy yet. He hasn't told me that he killed him. He hasn't said he died or anything. If I see him come flying into my screen, hitting the guy that I'm currently fighting, I need to, in a split second, realize, okay, my teammate just made a switch. He's attacked my person that I was just fighting. But where is the person my teammate was just fighting? Because it's not like that enemy is just going to be cool with my teammate hitting his teammate. Sorry, that's kind of a mouthful. But it's not like the enemy is just going to be cool with that. The enemy is going to the analogy I use a lot of times is like kicking a hornet's nest. Like if you kick that hornet's nest, you can't just expect the hornets to be cool with that. You gotta expect them to be coming at you. So when my teammate makes a switch, catching is the act of switching onto the guy that he was just fighting to catch him before he kills your whole team, or in this case, just kills your teammate. So that's kind of what I was just talking about here with these two guys. Actually, wait, can I go back and kind of show all that? No. With these two guys, switching onto these two guys, and then these two guys kind of catching as a unit these two guys. And when that crisscross, I mean, you see this crisscross looks the exact same as the example I just had, but on a much harder to implement scale. So at your level, just worry about these two things. If the enemy matches you, they said, like if you're doing the 3-2 split, which I would definitely recommend, and you're doing a passive 3-2, so like a reactive, like pincer strategy is what I would refer to it as, pincer, like a scorpion's pincer, like I said. Two things can happen. Either all 5 enemies can push either the trio or the pair, in which case those guys just kind of back up, and then let me use a different color. Your teammates kind of go for a wide wrap and hit them in the back, and then you sandwich them and kill them. Or if they match, so if 2 guys go here and then 3 guys go here, it's basically just comes down to micro, just winning inside that fight. Like the 2v2 just needs to win, the 3v3 just needs to win, and it's not gonna happen every time, but it's still it's an equal. I'm gonna try to say it's an equal engagement. But that's not to say that you can't make these good switches. Like if I'm this guy right here, if like here, let me actually move this guy here. I want to redraw this guy. It's bugging me. If I, for example, am this red player here, let me use gray. If I am this red player, and I'm kind of dueling this guy. Maybe I make a switch, and my teammate catches, yada yada, and I see this guy over here has his back turned to me. Like he's facing this direction fighting my teammate. And I kind of see that. And so I'm going to wander around this guy and end up over here. And then if I can, or maybe I'll do a little bit more diagonally, right? And I'll end up over here. And then what I'll do is this guy here, when next time he throws an attack at me, I'll either chamber it or I'll riposte it or whatever, and I'll do a 180 and I'll switch on to this guy. Basically, what that does is, in a nutshell, wins your team the round. If you can get a good switch like that, if you're just fighting in this 2v2 and you, on a macro scale, realize that you have an opportunity to impact your teammates' fights in their 3v3 and it's strong, that can be the difference between winning a round. A lot of times when fights separate into like 5 duels, or if it's like, in this situation a 2v2 and a 3v3, if you make that kind of round-defining switch into your teammates' fight, like I said, 99% of the time, just win this 3v3. Just win this 3v3, just win this 2v2. But if you have that opportunity, and you see that opportunity well to switch into your teammates' fight, that can sometimes be all it takes to win a round. Now, I'm not saying, what I'm not saying is that you come over here and you take the riposte and you hit a guy and then you keep fighting in this fight forever long. Because what have you done in that case? You've kicked the hornet's nest. Because this blue guy, I'll tell you what, is not going to appreciate you hitting his friend over here in the back of the head. And he, if not matched correctly, is going to do the same thing a lot of the time. Because if you come over here and you hit this guy in the back, and then we use, let's say, black for this blue guy, he is going to come behind and hit your teammates in the back. So make sure that either this guy catches the guy running over, right, because this guy's going to run over here, or as soon, probably best case scenario would be as soon as you, this red guy, make this nice switch into the 3v3, you just kind of turn around and you just kind of stop him. And I know that's a lot of steps. It's like you take a step, you switch, and then you come back and stop. And if you can do that, that will win the round. Probably 80% of the time that you do that. Again, that's hard to do. It's not going to happen every round. But if you can see those kind of switches, really, really good job. That's a very hard macro thing to see. But if you can switch onto the 3v3 from the 2v2, or conversely, if I'm this guy right here, and I see an opportunity to switch onto the 2v2, because a lot of the times, like I said, these guys are going to be focused on the two guys in front of them. They're not going to be really worried about the 3v3 going on over here. And so a lot of times this blue guy maybe will wander off a little too far and still be facing this direction. Like he'll still be facing this red guy, but he'll be positioned here. And so if you, as this lovely red person, recognizes that and this guy's standing here, then you can just hit him in the back, right? So definitely make sure you're looking for those kind of switches between the two fights, but don't force them because you don't want to kick the hornet's nest and then run away and leave that guy to kill your whole team. But definitely be looking for them, and especially in this 3-2 split, in this pincher strategy, when it doesn't go as you planned. Because best case scenario when you do the 3-2 split is the enemy doesn't know what they're doing, and let me put these back. The enemy doesn't know what they're doing, and they send all 5. Oh, it's not a circle. They send all 5. I can't draw. All 5 of their guys over here, and then again, these guys, not in the brush. Keep forgetting that. These guys back up towards spawn, and these guys get a really nice wrap and kind of bulldoze through them, and you hit them from both sides. That's best case scenario. What you should do against the 3-2 split is what I was just talking about. Just kind of doing like a 3v3 over here and a 2v2 over here. And like I said, this a lot of time comes down more to individual skill because you're not going to be able to switch between the 2v2 and the 3v3 every round. But yeah, it basically just boils down to individual skill. So that's kind of like the more defensive version of the 3-2 split. So again, we've covered the W formation, which you can split off into a 3-2 split. Remember, we kind of talked about that. Is if like you have your W, here, let me do red. If you have your W, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 players, you can have 2 of them or 3 of them go left and 2 of them go right and kind of form this 3-2 split out of a W. Obviously, the weapons need to be a little different because you don't want to have like 2 spears in a 3-2 split. But yeah, basically in that kind of thing. And then again with the 3-2 with the W formation, you can either push toward them, or you can be more defensive, either toward your spawn or toward one of the corners, kind of getting together into like a ball. Same thing applies with the 3-2 split. There's defensive versions of the 3-2 split where you have you're just kind of waiting for them to see what they do, which is when the pincer comes into play, or you can be a little bit more aggressive with your 3-2 split. And what's really cool with the 3-2 split is you can kind of force that trash compactor like favorable engagement for you, because again, if blue team gets in here and these two guys are able to get behind and hit them in the back, it's really good for you. It's like a trash compactor. Um, and the same thing applies if you can force the blue team in between you. So what's really cool about the 3-2 split is you can also be aggressive with it. And you can have these three guys, let's say, for example, let me erase everything actually. Let's say, for example, you have three red guys pushed up over here, and then two red guys, let's say, over here, for example. This is a very common engagement. A lot of engagements will actually look exactly like this at, kind of high level, because 3-2 is played quite a bit. And then the blue guy here, right? Now, this engagement is very favorable for red, because this red guy has taken a couple steps this way. He spent like a second of his time to walk this way, because I'm sure you guys can guess what's going to happen next. All of these blue guys are facing this way. All of their backs are turned, and this red guy is about to force that trash compactor kind of engage and hit people in the back of the head. So that's why 3-2 split is really dangerous for the enemy team to deal with. But conversely, you're not the only players on the battlefield that can make these kind of switches. So if, for example, these red guys over here maybe get a little overextended, or he's fighting like this, or he's positioning them the same way. Remember, like this is what we were just looking at with all of the that's not a brush, with all of the blue guys facing this way. But now let's say that this red guy here is facing this direction with his back turned. He doesn't realize that maybe he's wandered a little closer than he would like toward the blue team. Remember, you're not the only team that's going to be able to make these switches, because this blue guy here is now in a perfect position to hit this guy in the back of the head if he realizes. So that's why you have to always be thinking about your positioning with respect to your team, and also with respect to the enemy team, because you're going to be getting switched on a lot of the time by better players. And so what skirmish boils down to a lot of time is you being able to make those better switches than the enemies. Okay? Does that make sense?
Yep.
Yep.
All right, so that's basically the 3-2 split. You have let me see how far I can go back. Oh, all the way apparently. You have, and this is probably what you guys would run most of the time. You have like three guys go one way, and then two guys go the other way. You can either play it defensive, where you wait for them and then you try to pinch them, or you just fight the 2v2 and the 3v3, try to switch between if you can, or you play more aggressive and you try to force those switches on your terms. Okay?
Yep.
All right. Any questions about the 3-2 split?
No, sure.
The only other thing I want to mention is worst case scenario. So worst case scenario when you do the 3-2 split, let me draw this a little bit better. You have like, your three guys over here and your two guys over here. Worst case scenario, does anyone know what it is? Does anyone know the way to counter a 3-2 split? Anybody? Or maybe some guesses?
I gotcha.
Group up all together and stay all five together.
No, that's remember, that's when you pull out the pincer a lot of times, when you have like you wrap around them.
What about 4-1? Like
4-1. Exactly. 4-1
That's
is the
exactly what I was
counter.
going. He stole my idea.
Yes, 4-1 is the counter to 3-2, because 1v2s in this game are so broken. Especially like, so you basically, the way you counter 3-2, and the worst thing to face against it, is when they send four guys this way and just one guy over here. Because this one guy, especially if he's good, is going to be able to survive in this 1v2 like probably 10, 15 seconds, maybe even win it a couple times in the map, which sucks. And then this 4v3, because a 4v3, I'll tell you now, a 4v3 is much easier to win than a 2v1. Fast, that is. A 2v1 is probably going to win more of the time, than a 4v3, but that one guy is super hard to kill a lot of time, unless he's really bad or if you're really good at 2v1ing or, a lot of things go into that. But a lot of the time, that guy in the 1v2 is going to be able to hold a lot longer than your 3 guys getting swung out from 4 people. And so what will happen a lot of time is these 3 reds will die, and this 1 blue will die, and then these 2 reds are left in a 2v4. And so what do you do against a 4-1 when you're playing 3-2 and you get hit with a 4-1, which, by the way, is usually what my team runs. My team usually runs a 4-1 or a 3-2. When we play against a 3-2, we go a 4-1. When we play against a W, we usually go a 3-2. So it kind of depends, here and there. But basically what you do against a 4-1 is one of 2 things. Either you pray like hell that these 3 guys are just going to be able... Okay, I guess 3 things. So you pray like hell that these 3 guys are going to be able to hold the 4v3 long enough for you to 2v1 this guy. Also, if you ever lose that 1v2, the round's over. Like, that's just a lost round, because they're not going to win the 3v4 most of the time. I mean, if the guy wins the 1v2 and your team wins the 3v4, I don't know what to tell you. That'll happen like 1 in 20 times, probably. Because you always want to be winning this 2v1. But let's say, for example, you kill this guy in the 2v1 really fast, and you 2 guys are able to run around and hit these guys in the back. Great. That's one way to do it. Just stay in the 2v1. Just 2v1 that guy. Your team hopefully holds the 3v4 long enough for you to win the 2v1. Option 2 is one of the 2 guys in the 2v1 tries to make a switch. Now this is where positioning on a macro scale comes into play. Because remember what we said before, if these 3 guys kind of back up all the way over here in the corner, and they're all like way over here, then this red guy is going to have absolutely no opportunities at all to switch onto the engage. So this is why it's important to back up if you can toward your spawn, or at least back up straight. At least not toward the corner in the case of the 3v1. Now the best thing that this blue guy can do, by the way, is back up toward his corner, while at the same time these 3 guys back up toward their corner. Because then, if these 2 red guys are over here and the other 3 are over here, there is no way in goddamn hell this red guy is ever making a switch unless he's Usain Bolt or using teleport hacks. So that's why it's important that positioning on a macro scale, because if this 2v1 takes place either as I have it drawn or maybe even a little closer, then this guy is going to have potentially opportunities to switch onto the backs of the guys in the 4v3. Because I'll tell you, even at high level, I'm also guilty of this. These 4 guys, a lot of the time, are going to be facing these 3 guys. Because you can't just always be like looking around all the time. Now this guy, in particular, is kind of tasked with keeping his eyes on both engagements at once. No, I forget what I was saying. But yeah, basically this guy here might have opportunities to impact the round. It's kind of on him a lot of the time to either, if he thinks he can effectively win this 2v1 quickly, go ahead. But if he thinks he can make a switch onto the 4 guys, also go ahead. But that's pretty much how you do the 4-1. Option 3, switch formations. Because the 4-1 is the 3-2 is a counter to the W, and the 4-1 is a counter to the 3-2. But the 4-1 isn't that great against W, right? So if the only 3 formations that you know is a W, a 4-1, and a 3-2, that's fine. You can do great with that. But eventually you want to get to a spot where you have more advanced high-level formations under your belt that you can kind of switch between. Because there are formations that are really good against a 4-1, that are bad against a W, and so on. But for now, if you just focus on knowing a W and a 3-2, and then occasionally running a 4-1 with a rat, then you'll be good to go. Those are the basic formations. And again, with the W, you can either decide to be aggressive. You can choose to do a more ball formation, like kind of sticking together in the corner. You can be more just regular defensive, just kind of in the middle, see what the enemy does. A defensive W isn't great against rats though, because you can get wrapped really easily. Again, the W also you can split into a 3-2, or kind of now that you know the 3-2. Remember earlier how I talked? This is the last thing I'm going to do on Paint. Then we'll have like 20 minutes just to practice stuff in game. But remember earlier how I said if you have a 3-2 split like this, you can kind of have 2 of your guys kind of break off if this gap exists, for example, right? So this kind of, you can transform these two red guys can kind of transform into a 3-2 split by like kind of wrapping around. Remember something I said earlier was strong side. It's not a term you need to know. But basically, they're just going to strong side through on the left and try to take these guys riposte and hit the enemy guys. But yeah, in the W, you can also transpose into a 3-2 split by kind of having two of your guys naturally glide off. Or you can just run a 4-1, which honestly, the best formation in the game right now is probably a 4-1. It might be 3-2, but like 4-1 and 3-2 are both pretty good. And W is always really solid. If your opponent isn't running any rats and you don't want to run any rats, if you're on Contraband or Alden and you just want to run the W, go for it, man. I haven't ran a W in like 6 months, but if you guys want to get the W, go for it. But other than that, try to play a rat or two, if you can. Have some guys with light armor if they prefer that kind of thing. I've never been much of a light armor guy because my defense is kind of shoddy in skirmish, so sometimes I die, like get one-shotted instantly, which is not good as a rat. So you just kind of want to focus on survivability a lot of the time. So if you can run like a rat or two that are good at surviving and also have high damage impact, go for it. Other than that, yeah, make sure you're trying like the 3-2 split. If you want to just do a 4-1 with a just 3 front lines to support and a rat, like I said, that's probably the best right now is probably a 4-1 or a 3-2 with 2 rats. And again, with those 2 rats, you can have one on either side of the trio, or play like a 3-2 with 2 rats together. Whatever you want to do. There's a lot you can do within the W, the 4-1 and the 3-2. So as long as you know those 3 things, then you're pretty much good to go. So if your opponents are countering your formation, don't just keep doing that same formation like over and over. Like something that Big Dogs is really good at and what makes them a top 5 team is their adaptability, because whatever your formation that you do, they're going to counter it. Like if you're playing 3-2, they're going to play ball. If you go 4-1, they're going to play W, and so on and so forth. If you're trying to play a 3-2, they might just go 3-2 and have better switches than you. So like that's pretty much what it comes down to. Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, in general, as long as you're focusing on switching and macro-based play, not only thinking about what you can do as an individual, but also what your opponents can do, then you'll be pretty much good to go. Thanks for watching, everyone. Let me know if you enjoyed it, what you learned from it. If you have any questions, feel free to comment them or message me, like I said, on Discord. Or Steam or anything like that. Just always feel free to reach out if you need any additional tips or coaching or anything, and if you want to get into those kind of more advanced tips and more advanced formations as well. Maybe if your team watching this already knows some of this stuff, or maybe it's a little more intermediate and you want to learn how to get good at stuff like front to backing, making round defining switches, having better awareness as a team, or even like specifically what you should be doing as your position, that more advanced level of macro stuff, always feel free to reach out. I haven't done too much of that stuff for whole teams, but I'm pretty much open to whatever, and I could probably help with most stuff. So yeah, just feel free to reach out, and we can work something out. But let me know, if you're still here, let me know what you thought of this video in the comments, and I'll see you guys later. Peace.